Well, here in Walsh Park, where Cork have beaten Waterford 222 to 119 in the Munster Championship. Paul, did you see that one coming?
No, absolutely not. I don't think anyone here thought that was going to be the narrative after the game. But look, Cork were fully deserving to their win, 6 points as well. They got their matchups right in the backs, got their 2 goals that they really needed to get. But once Austin Gleeson was sent off, Cork really turned the screw. And in fairness to the small crowd that travelled here for Cork, they got a great match here and they got a great victory.
1 point in it at the break, and we thought, okay, Waterford will have the breeze in the second half, they'll probably kick on. They never did. Why?
Well, I just think Cork probably targeted. It's common enough that lads will say we're targeting the first 10 minutes in the first half or the second half. But Cork, if that was their intent, they really did it. And Waterford didn't get to grips with them. Got a few nice scores, really steadied the ship. And they were threatening the whole time to push it out to 2 scores. They got 3 points on the board. Waterford bring it back to 2, but they really pushed on. And the introduction of Tim O'Mahony into the full forward line, he was just making that ball stick in there. And at that stage, then Waterford were a little bit on the back foot. They were playing up the field a bit too high maybe. Austin Gleeson getting sent off, and that was really the narrative after that. Seamus Harnedy, Waterford couldn't get to grips with. 5 points from play, absolutely enormous. Connolly 5 points, 3 from play, 2 from frees. So if you want to see where your scores are there, and then Alan Connolly with the 2 goals, which were absolutely enormous.
We'll get back to Connolly, we'll get back to Harnedy, we'll get back to the sending off. But first of all, what about Cork's setup? There was some thought that maybe they'd drop a sweeper back, or they'd try and stifle Waterford and then wait until the game opened up. They were good when the game opened up, but at no stage did they go defensive. They actually went player for player and took Waterford on, and Liam Cahill said it afterwards, his team were bullied by Cork. Where did that intensity, where did that physicality come from Cork? Or was it always there and they just showed it today?
It's hard to know. Something Cork have been criticised for lately is their backs. Do their backs know what they're doing? And for me, and I could be wrong, but it just seemed like they went man for man in the backs. I mean, even the introduction of Damien Cahill, if Tim O'Mahony came on in the second half there, that to me says that they probably actually went for a tactical change with Damien Cahill.
Just to clarify for people who don't know, Tim O'Mahony had been named at wing back. He didn't start. We were told it was because of an injury. Damien Cahill started. Then 5 minutes into the second half, O'Mahony went on in place of Patrick Horgan in the forward line, and then a couple of minutes later helped set up the goal.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, maybe there wasn't a leg injury. Maybe it was Tim O'Mahony. They were maybe going to introduce him later on and probably just throw the cats among the pigeons into the Waterford backline. And it seemed to work. But their matchups from the start, Damien Cahill came on. He was on Stephen Bennett, and stuck really tightly to him. I was looking at Niall O'Leary, was on Austin Gleeson, and he's pulling and dragging. So to me, that was Kieran Kingston was saying, "Listen, lads, we're going to go man for man. If there's any doubt, grab your man. You stick to him. That's your job." So there'll be no confusion about who's spare, who's dropping back, whatever it's going to be. And then of course once they did get the extra man, Mark Coleman sat back, and that was perfect really for Cork at that stage. But I think they just went man for man in the backs, and they were saying, listen, when we have the ball, work the ball out, but when you don't have the ball, don't be afraid to put pressure on this Waterford team high up the pitch, which sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but really it worked more often than not for them. And then in the backline they had their matchups, they knew their jobs, and they did it really well. Desi Hutchinson as well, not on the score sheet. So I think there's your indicators as to the matchups getting right for Kieran Kingston and his men.
And Stephen Bennett taken off.
Stephen Bennett taken off, Shane Bennett brought on for him. But again, something that maybe Stephen Bennett has been maybe criticised for over the last while is brilliant on the frees, but maybe this year he hasn't been getting enough from play. So again, we saw Patrick Horgan on the opposite side being taken off, maybe again not getting enough from play, and both managers making huge calls there. So Stephen Bennett, look, at the time, in fairness to him, Liam Cahill had to make calls. He needed to get scores on the board. He had Patrick Curran took over the frees and got 2 scores. So I think they were looking for a little bit more from play, and in fairness, the subs for Waterford came on, and Montgomery got a score as well. So look, I think the play from play was the real place they were looking for scores today.
When I spoke to Liam Cahill after the game, an interview that you can check out through the Off the Ball social media channels, he seemed really down for all the obvious reasons, but he also said players maybe have to look at this themselves. Players maybe have questions to answer. He said too often they maybe look to the ref or look to the line when things were going wrong, and also he said that messages that they were putting in didn't seem to be landing. Now that's very honest out of Liam. Is that something you can get right in a week, or how does that happen to a team like Waterford, who people were talking about as one of the favourites for the All-Ireland?
Yeah, at the start of this year and even through the league, we were just saying that they probably had the strongest panel, including Limerick, because they were just introducing these players. That any 15 they started was a really strong 15, and they really seemed to know what they were about. But if Liam Cahill is saying that they're giving instructions onto the pitch and they're not being followed through, well, that is a concern for Liam Cahill, because this is 2 defeats in a row now for Waterford, and that's not the preparation they wanted. Liam Cahill had said earlier in the week that this was probably the most important match in his tenure in Walsh Park. So So they did target it, and they didn't take this match for granted. So again, Liam Cahill will be scratching his head there saying, okay, some players performed, some players, stood up, but where were those other players? And, maybe asking questions about a bit of the mentality of a few players. Austin Gleeson now with 2 red cards this year, he had a great match, 4 great points from play, but certainly Liam Cahill will be looking at these going, okay, it's one thing to be scoring a few points from play, but where are you when we don't have the ball? Where are you when I'm telling you, listen, drop back or cover off? If the instructions aren't being followed in the pitch, Liam Cahill will have to keep the players on the pitch that are going to follow the instructions.
I was speaking to a former Waterford captain a little bit earlier on, and the referee walked out past us, and I said, normally you could try and manufacture some anger at the referee from the Waterford point of view. People might know I'm a Waterford man, but we couldn't today. Like it was nothing to do with the referee. Waterford just played badly. Cork got on top of them and just implemented their game plan.
Yeah, you couldn't say anything about the referee today. In fairness, James Owens, he had a good game, and it was a tough game because it was very physical, and there was a lot going on off the ball. I saw John Keenan even getting on to Niall O'Leary for being up in Austin Gleeson's face and pulling and dragging. So there was a bit of that, but it was on both sides, and to be honest, that's what we want. It's a Munster Championship game. We want a bit of aggression, we want a bit of heart, but there was nothing there that Waterford could feel hard done by. A 6-point beating is a 6-point beating.
You actually spoke about this on the Hurling pod during the week with Will O'Callaghan and James Cahill. Cornerbacks annoying forwards. That's exactly what Niall O'Leary did to Austin Gleeson, judging from what you were saying. You tug his jersey, you get in his ear, you stick with him, you take a yellow if you have to, but Niall O'Leary played it perfectly today, didn't he?
He did, absolutely. And any time I looked down the pitch and looked at Niall O'Leary from minute 1, he was just letting Austin Gleeson, he was there. Now, like I said, Austin Gleeson got 4 points from play, but that's Austin Gleeson. He's very much capable of that. But Niall O'Leary was there, and he was dogged, and he was fighting, and maybe just, I suppose, pushed Austin Gleeson that little bit much, so he was getting yellow cards, and he went to the sideline. In fairness, Niall O'Leary, he was dogged. So yeah, like we were saying earlier in the week on the pod, that's what you have to do. You have to ask questions and maybe get under their skin.
2 goals for Cork. It was part of the difference in the end. Talk to me about the 2 of them. The second one better than the first, and that's saying something, because the first, both were scored by Alan Connolly, was pretty special as well.
Yeah, Robbie O'Flynn made a great break down the right side for the first goal, took a shot. Sean O'Ryan saved it really well, but Alan Connolly at the left hand post, poaching as he was for the second goal, in the right place, buried it. The second goal again, I suppose, was just an insight into the Cork mindset at the time. Went in, Tim O'Mahony won it straight away, runners off the shoulder, popped it to Harndy popped it into Kingston, and you could see they were going for goals straight away. Kingston lead it over, and Alan Connolly, in fairness to him, cool head, popped the ball past, and once that goal went in, you felt this is it for Cork.
That flick from Kingston was beautiful, wasn't it? He just kind of spooned it on the volley.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. And there's another man that they introduced into the game. Kingston came in just before half time, got 2 points and set up a great goal for Connolly. Could have got the ball, turned and went for goal himself, but he didn't. He was very clinical about popping across to Connolly and made sure that the pass stuck. So every part of that move, each player deserves credit. Harndy for the run, Tim O'Mahony for winning it, and Kingston for popping it off. But Connolly still had a bit of work to do.
Just before I let you go, can Waterford turn it around against Clare next week in Ennis? As we speak, Clare are playing, so we don't know exactly what the situation will be. And can Cork do it again against Tip next week? Tip, who in a progression in the championship sense have nothing to play for, but they'll want to show a bit of pride. They'll want to get a victory. Yeah,
this is it. And again, as you say, Clare and Limerick are going on at the moment. But Clare are putting it up to Limerick as we speak, and Clare have had great results. But Ennis is a very tough place to come, and that's not just a token thing to say. It's a very tough place to go. So Waterford can turn it around. Absolutely, they can. Will they is another question, because they're going to go down there and they're going to play a Clare team that have their own agenda at the moment and are playing for their own.
But what do you do to turn it around from the Waterford point of view? Do you have a big Barney in the dressing room? They're still in the dressing room there, by the way. Do you go out for a few sociables tonight? What do you do? You wait till tomorrow night? What do you do from the Waterford point of view?
Well, that's for Liam Cahill to put his finger on the pulse and figure that out. Probably at this stage, I wouldn't say it's a thing that you go for a few pints, because you're only going to be playing.
I never said pints, I said sociables.
Sociables, that's pints. But I think at this stage it's really, sometimes you have to crack the whip and sometimes you kind of have to let lads go. But I think really at this stage it's a case of, right lads, you either want to be, pushing for Munster titles here and pushing for All Ireland titles, or if Cork are going to come into your backyard, we're not going to go up and Clare aren't going to turn over in Ennis. So you'd want to be really, I suppose, putting the foot in the throat here and saying, listen lads, we need players who are going to perform, and who are going to perform really well day to day, and that's what we're about.
I'm actually not sure if they're still in the dressing room. They were there for a while. Just before I let you go, at your own county, Kilkenny taking on Wexford next week. That's going to be some battle, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Any matches we've played between Wexford Park or between Nolan Park, there's just been great atmospheres at them. But after Kilkenny beating Dublin last night in Parnell Park, you can see where Kilkenny are going. They're pushing hard for a Leinster final, and that's where they want to be. Wexford coming off the draw against Westmeath, which Westmeath are full credit for in that game. Hard to know where Wexford are at the moment, but certainly attitude and aggression. They could learn a lot from Cork here today and come up and put in a serious battle against Kilkenny. But I just think Kilkenny in Nolan Park, in fairness, I've known it over the years, it is a bit of a fortress, and I think Brian will be eager just to lay down a savage marker, put Wexford to one side. That won't be simple, but put them to one side, get the match over and done with, and be going for a Leinster final. Okay,
Paul Murphy, former All-Ireland winner with Kilkenny, thanks for joining us here at Walsh Park, where we've seen Waterford beaten by Cork in the Munster Championship 2022.